Hey, what's going on, guys? We finally have a new update for Pokemon Champions. The biggest thing here is the arrival of Regulation Set MB. If you've been keeping up with the competitive side of Pokemon Champions, you probably already knew this was coming, but now it's officially here, and it's bringing new Pokemon and new held items into the game. That's really the part that stands out the most because every time the available roster expands, the entire competitive environment starts shifting. Teams that were comfortable in the previous format suddenly have new threats to deal with. Certain strategies get stronger, others become less reliable, and players immediately start experimenting to figure out what works best. What's interesting is that Pokemon Champions launched with a limited pool of Pokemon and items compared to what many players are used to in other competitive Pokemon titles. Because of that, every wave of additions feels meaningful. Even a handful of new options can completely change how battles play out. So, whenever a regulation update arrives and starts adding more choices, people begin theory crafting almost instantly. The patch notes themselves don't go into detail about exactly how every addition will impact the metagame, but the fact that new Pokemon and held items are being introduced through Regulation Set MB means we're entering a different competitive environment than the one players have been grinding for recently. Another thing happening alongside this update is the mobile release of Pokemon Champions, which means a whole new group of players can jump into the game. That's actually pretty significant because competitive communities tend to grow a lot when a game becomes available on phones. Outside of the new content, the developers also addressed some technical issues. One of the fixes mentioned involves battle visuals. Those kinds of fixes might not sound exciting at first, but if you've spent enough time in online battles, you know how important it is for information to be displayed correctly. Competitive players rely on visual feedback constantly, and even minor display problems can become frustrating over time. There were also fixes related to networking. That's something a lot of players are always happy to see because online battles are the core of the entire experience. A competitive game lives and dies by how stable its online systems are. If connections become more reliable and certain network related problems are reduced, that's a win for everyone, regardless of what kind of team they're using. Uh, the update also includes various bug fixes and general improvements. Games like Pokemon Champions have a huge number of interactions happening every single battle between abilities, held items, move effects, mega evolutions, status conditions, and everything else happening at once. There are always edge cases that developers need to clean up over time. One detail players should definitely be aware of is that this update is required for online play. So if you're planning to jump into ranked battles, casual matches, or any online features, you'll need to make sure the game is updated first. Looking at the overall package, this update feels more focused on setting up the next phase of Pokemon Champions. The introduction of Regulation Set MB opens the door for new strategies, new team compositions, and a different competitive landscape. At the same time, the bug fixes and networking improvements help make sure the actual experience of playing remains stable as more people jump into the game. Now the interesting part begins. Players are going to spend the next several days testing teams, experimenting with the newly available Pokemon, figuring out which held items are worth using, and trying to identify the strongest combinations before everyone else catches on. That's usually when competitive Pokemon is at its most fun, because nobody has all the answers yet, and every battle feels like a chance to discover something new.